You're watching This Week in Louisiana Politics with Fred Childers.
Well, good Sunday morning to you. I'm Shannon Hecht in for Fred Childers. Thanks for joining us for This Week in Louisiana Politics on your local election headquarters. This week, the Louisiana legislature kicked off the 2022 regular session. It's a first full session since the pandemic began, and Governor John Bel Edwards has some big goals he wants to see get done.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Governor of Louisiana, the Honorable John Bel Edwards.
Governor John Bel Edwards' State of the State speech highlights the rare spot Louisiana is in with federal aid, surplus, and excess money.
We are not going back to the days of deficits, fiscal cliffs, and one-time dollars for recurring expenditures.
The governor is pushing for investments in infrastructure like the Mississippi River Bridge in Baton Rouge. He's also vying for a $1,500 pay raise for teachers. Governor Edwards also took a stand saying insurance companies must be held accountable for taking advantage of vulnerable people after a hurricane. A number of bipartisan bills have been filed to tackle the issue from all angles.
Everyone's been affected by this, and some of the negative actions by these bad actors in the insurance industry, which is those delayed tactics that you hear, the adjuster swapping. We got to put an end to this.
There are high-profile controversial bills looking at critical race theory, transgender rights, and more that some lawmakers believe will distract from the bigger issues.
It's going to take up all of the air out of the room, and it's going to set us back. And I'm just thinking at this time people will expect more.
After highlighting how far the state has come through the COVID pandemic, he closed by asking the legislators to do the right thing.
But the decisions we make while here will last generations.
Lawmakers are diving right into the stack of bills they filed. They started by making sure students who were heavily impacted by Hurricane Ida will still get their chance at top scholarships. The bill was brought up by the Louisiana Office of Financial Assistance to make the proclamation permanent by the governor. It lays out that students who were in a high school when Ida hit can get an extension to take the ACT, and students won't be penalized if they didn't finish the state core courses if they had to leave Louisiana for the rest of the year.
You've done this for Katrina and Rita, you did this for Laura Delta Zeta, because as we know, proclamations expire, right? And so when you codify it into law, you're just saying, this is law, this is a permanent record of the things that we did.
The bill passed without objection and heads to the Senate. State Representative Dodie Horton has introduced a bill similar to Florida's recently passed Don't Say Gay law. It's House Bill 837, and it would ban teachers and employees from discussing or teaching about sexual orientation or gender identity in classrooms. It also keeps them from discussing their own sexual orientation or gender identity with students. Louisiana is not the only state to copy Florida's controversial bill. At least 15 other states have introduced similar legislation. The special committee investigating the death of Ronald Greene brought in state police brass that were in power at the time of the event. The testimony brought to attention a lot of how the death was handled from the top down. Legislators are trying to see if anyone knew of a cover-up. The special committee unveiled a series of moments where higher-ups at the state police and the governor's office did not ask for more information regarding the death of Ronald Greene and left it up to investigators where there are currently accused cover-ups. After the initial text to the governor saying there was a lengthy, violent encounter with a motorist, the governor did not get a deeper debrief on the matter until several months later.
I am surprised that the top wasn't briefed often and nobody was like, okay, let me know where we're at today. That is a little shocking.
Former LSP Superintendent Kevin Reeves says that he did not take part in the investigation, which is standard policy. But legislators point to information that was left out of some of the initial reports that would have warranted more questions from the get-go.
When you leave something out, it's for a reason. It's not a mistake that someone died. I mean, someone died. We're not talking about someone that was just injured. Someone died.
Colonel Reeves maintains the belief that Greene died because of a car crash and that there was not a cover-up in information.
But I can tell you right now, I will not have to account for participating in a cover-up of the death of Mr. Ronald Greene.
Members on both sides of the aisle remain skeptical and have many more questions. all the people who came to testify willingly, a resolution is making its way through the House to give committees created by the Speaker subpoena power. The bill passed the House and Governmental Affairs Committee and only needs a simple majority vote of the full House to take effect. And with the dramatic rise in overdose deaths in Louisiana, one bill looks to make it easier for people to see if drugs are laced with fentanyl. The bill by Representative Dustin Miller would take fentanyl test strips off of the drug paraphernalia list. He says while it doesn't fix the root issue of addiction, it could help prevent accidental overdose.
These illegal manufacturers, illegal drug dealers, whatever you want to label them as, has been lacing fentanyl on Adderall pills, on opioid pills, mixing it in heroin and in different drugs, and people are not knowing that there's fentanyl included.
LDH reports a 119% increase in opioid deaths between 2020 and 2021, mainly from fentanyl. Civil rights groups, including the NAACP Legal Defense Fund and the ACLU of Louisiana, are suing the state over the recently passed redistricting maps. The group alleges that the maps violate Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, saying it denies black residents an equal opportunity to vote and elect candidates of their choice. The NAACP Legal Defense Fund attorney Victoria Wenger says that the Louisiana legislature has attempted to silence black voters by not creating new minority districts in any of the maps, despite the minority growth in the population. Governor John Bel Edwards vetoed the congressional map proposal, but did not veto the House and Senate maps. After the break, I sit down with Jeremy Alford of LA Politics to discuss some of the debates we expect to see at the legislature.
This is your local election headquarters.
Welcome back. I'm joined by Jeremy Alford of LA Politics. Thanks for being here.
It's good to be back.
So this session has just kicked off. There's a lot going on just in the first week, and I want to talk to you about some of the specific details. With the Ronald Greene Committee, the special committee in the House, there's a resolution coming through to give them subpoena power, right? Can you tell me a little bit about what that's going to mean?
Yes, it's amazing. The first week of the session had a lot more politics than policy, and the two driving political issues were redistricting and this select committee, neither of which have anything to do with the regular session, but a huge distraction nonetheless. And at least we're going into the week 2 of the session knowing a few things. We know that this select committee that was created by the Speaker to investigate this state police involved death looks like it's going to have subpoena power. A proposal has already passed the committee process for that. Looks like the House is going to pass it next week, and I mean just in time for this committee to turn its attention to Governor John Bel Edwards with subpoena power. How they use it, if they use it, is kind of the next big question. Lawmakers were confident that they thought they had the subpoena power for a select committee anyway, because usually that's reserved for standing committees. But passing this resolution and creating a new House rule to ensure they do have subpoena power tells me that they're planning to use this, or they're planning to threaten to use it.
Right, they already got former Superintendent Kevin Reeves to come in this last week, which was kind of their so-called explosive hearing that they were waiting for. We learned a lot, but do you think that the next big guy that they're expecting to subpoena could be the governor? Is that in their power now?
I don't think there is a bigger witness than Governor John Bel Edwards. You don't see governors testify before committees a whole lot. The governor has done it a few times, but just that image of a governor having to address a committee of lawmakers is quite an image, something we don't see a whole lot. So he is the big enchilada. That's what this whole hearing is about for a lot of conservative lawmakers in the House, is what the governor knew, when did he know it, and more importantly, what can we, I say we as legislators thinking this, how do they react to it?
That's, a great one to watch. There's another committee hearing on Tuesday, so they haven't made the list of their witnesses just yet, but I'm sure it'll be very interesting. But let's get into the actual policy thus far into this session, the $500 million that would go towards a new Mississippi River bridge. The governor's pretty confident that he's going to be able to put that away in a bank account for later, but it's already starting to get picked at by lawmakers. What are you hearing about that?
This is an interesting issue because, we're in Baton Rouge, so we know what the traffic is like here. I think folks in the surrounding region know what the traffic's like, and that it could be alleviated with another Mississippi River bridge. But look, I've been covering the legislature for more than 2 decades, and they have been talking about a new Mississippi River bridge this whole time. In fact, here we are now, all this federal money coming in, and they're still down to 20 different sites that where this bridge could potentially go. So you have a lot of lawmakers from outside the Baton Rouge region. Let's remember there are more from outside the Baton Rouge region than inside the Baton Rouge region, and they're in key positions like chairman of the Appropriations Committee and Speaker of the House, and they're raising questions about this. And what we're hearing is, on one hand, you have some lawmakers who are concerned that parking $500 million in an account for a project that is years away from any kind of earnest construction work is troubling. Then you have other lawmakers who are concerned that, look, we put a $500 million into an account for this Baton Rouge regional project. What about the projects in our area? You got folks over on the western side of the state saying, what about a bridge over the Calcasieu River? So it's, you know, I don't think this was ever going to be an easy ask, but the governor made it a big ask. He brought it up in his session opening speech, and I think you saw Republican lawmakers react in kind, raising a lot of concerns. So I think that this concept is probably easier said than done in the confines of the legislature, but it probably also offers us an early preview of what the debate over prioritizing infrastructure money will look like this session.
Right, you know, everyone agrees that Baton Rouge traffic is bad and that a new bridge would be helpful, and that's why, you know, fresh out the gate, a lot of people said that they were in support of this, but once they kind of realized how many years away we are from actually putting, you know, shovels in the ground, they started to walk that back. So could you see maybe this plan trying to get expedited by DOTD, maybe to get some plans in place to get these lawmakers to be more comfortable with this?
I think there are a few things that can happen to move it along a little bit quicker, but we're still talking about a long-range project that's on the horizon. You know, I think we could see lawmakers start to debate maybe a smaller number than $500 million to put into to kind of jumpstart this project. I don't think anyone wants to totally ignore it. There's also an argument that you know, it's kind of an argument you hear from wealthy people who have money, which is that you're going to park that $500 million when you could be using it to draw down matching federal dollars for other projects. So, you know, what's the best use of that money? Is it sitting in an account for a long-range project, or is it better for the state to use part or all of it to start to draw down some federal dollars to match it?
Right, Jeremy, and you know, shifting gears a little bit, you've been kind of in the weeds having these conversations of who is going to be on our ballot next year for governor. So, you know, what's kind of the latest developments with that you're finding? And
I'm not the only one. In Louisiana, governor's races never end. They start as soon as they end. And, you know, for the past year or so, there's kind of been a big three. There's been Lieutenant Governor Billy Nungesser, Attorney General Jeff Landry, and Treasurer John Schroeder, none of which have actually announced for governor, but they're kind of running for governor, but they haven't announced. I had an interview with Garrett Graves this week, who is the congressman from the 6th District that represents Baton Rouge all the way down to the coastline. And, you know, I asked him why many of his close friends and key supporters believe he's serious about running for governor. And right off the bat, he told me he has received hundreds of phone calls asking him to run for governor. He said there's no secret plan to run for governor. I asked him if he would rule it out, and he would not. In fact, he said that, look, if you go and you do your job well, that creates other options for you. And I've been covering Garrett Graves a very long time. I think this is the most candid he has been about the governor's race. You know, I think a lot of folks expect him to take it seriously, but he's got to get through his own reelection first, which is this fall. I imagine he won't have that hard of a time. This will be, I believe, his 4th bid for reelection. Every election, he has got an increased share of the vote every single time without exception. It'd be pretty amazing to see if that happens again. But he's got to get through this election first. But, you know, for my own purposes moving forward, when I talk about this governor's race, Congressman Garrett Graves is going to be in the mix.
Definitely. And do we have any kind of idea when any of these folks are going to officially announce? We're, you know, a little over a year until the actual election year, but, you know, when can we expect that?
It seems like I expected that there would have at least be a couple of announced candidates by now. If you go back to the last time we had an open race for governor, which was 2015, and you look at the 2014 calendar year, which is kind of what we're in now, leading into an open race, by January of that year, John Bell Edwards had already announced he had been raising money for months. David Vitter had just announced via YouTube on around New Year's Eve. Jay Darden already had a campaign website. So we had a developed field by this time during the last open race for governor. Not so much this time. You know, I think maybe one of the big differences is you have candidates who have these big statewide offices, lieutenant governor, treasurer, and attorney general. You know, that comes with some benefits. You can run for an office pretty well when you're on a soapbox like that. So that's probably one advantage to not announcing too soon. You know, plus it triggers all kind of fundraising things that they have to do. But I mean, it's pretty clear to me that you know the big four who are looking at the race we've discussed. But you have some other candidates too. You have potential candidates. Senator Rick Ward from over West Baton Rouge, Point Capit, Iberville area is thinking about the race. Senator Gary Smith from down in Norco, the only Democrat on this list, he's said to be thinking about the race. There's a freshman representative from the North Shore, Richard Nelson, who is thinking about the race. And I can tell you from covering these races before, there's going to be a lot more people thinking about this race than actually run. But so far, the most aggressive have been Billy Nungesser, Jeff Landry, and John Schroeder, and I'm going to go ahead and start adding Garrett Graves to that list.
That was a great insight, Jeremy. We'll just have to keep our eye out and see whenever someone actually announces for this race. But thank you so much for coming on and having a chat with us.
Always.
We'll be right back.
This is your local election headquarters.
Ukraine's fight against the Russian invasion continues, and many U.S. lawmakers believe that making the United States energy independent is the way to challenge Russia's threat to national security. Senator Bill Cassidy has introduced legislation called Operation Warp Speed that would fast-track oil and gas leases in the U.S.
Last week, I released a policy outline for a plan to return to American energy independence, to assist our European allies by creating a Russia-free energy future, and a desire to decrease carbon intensity of our economy.
Senator John Kennedy responded to the Ukrainian president's address to Congress, saying that he's been able to unite the West.
He's not asking for American troops or American planes or American pilots. He's asking for help in terms of winning the war in the air. And whether he needs surface air missiles or planes, we should provide them to him.
Across the aisle, Democratic Congressman Troy Carter echoes this sentiment, saying the U.S. support has to continue to help fight off Russia.
There was a video that was showed during that presentation with the president that was gut-wrenching. To watch schools and residents being bombed, just absolutely demonstration of a war criminal, and that's exactly what Putin is.
Carter says he will continue to advocate to send resources to the Ukrainian army. And Congressman Carter is also celebrating bringing $17 million to Louisiana through the most recent government funding bill. Millions of dollars are going to universities for research around managing epidemics and managing mental health challenges. One item he is most proud of is the $3 million to build a sports stadium in the lower 9th Ward of New Orleans.
These things create an economic boost for these communities that have long been devastated and are slow to recover from the various storms.
Some of the Louisiana delegation was frustrated with the lack of disaster relief aid in this bill. Carter says that he will continue to push in other bills to get more help on the way to survivors of Hurricanes Laura and Ida. And up next, we will have a look ahead at your local election headquarters.
This is your local election headquarters.
Well, looking ahead to the coming week, the legislative session continues with the debate over the 1,500 bills. And the special committee investigating the death of Ronald Greene will be meeting on Tuesday morning. And tomorrow, BRAC CEO Adam Knapp will be speaking at the Baton Rouge Press Club about the economic forecast for the Capital Region. And don't forget, this Saturday is Election Day here in Louisiana, and there are local races throughout the state, and you can find out what is on your ballot at sos.la.gov. Thank you for joining us for This Week in Louisiana Politics. We'll be right back here next Sunday on your local election headquarters. Stay safe and be kind to each other.